dragi panelisti, dragi participanti. I will continue now in English. Now I would like to introduce the first panel. The subject is Property Infrastructure Projects, Challenges and Opportunities, and our moderator, Mr. Petar Orlic, Real Estate Partner from GMW Solicitors from UK. Peter, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Jagoda. Thank you to you. Thank you to Simeon, and thank you to Jadranka for organizing a conference. It's been a great conference so far, and I think everyone will agree there's been some very interesting and useful information provided by the keynote speakers. Today's panel, Property and Infrastructure Projects, Challenges and Opportunities. Before I introduce the panel members, just a few housekeeping rules. We're under a tight time frame, so we've got till 11 a.m. Central European time, 10 a.m. GMT. So that gives us about 45 minutes. So the panel will be split into 4 different sections. I'll do the first introductions, and then the panelists very briefly, and then the panelists will introduce themselves. Then we will have specific infrastructure related questions to specific panelists. And then we'll have property, real estate questions to specific panelists as well. And then at the end, we're going to have question and answers. So anybody who has a question, you can see the tab at the bottom of your screen, the chat function, you can send in your questions, and then depending on what time we have and how much time we have, we'll try to answer as many of those questions as possible. So first of all, for those of you don't know, my name is Petar Orlic. I'm a partner at JMW Law Firm in the UK, which is a full service law firm and one of the fastest growing law firms in London at the minute, even during the pandemic. You can tell by my accent that I was born in the UK, but my roots are from Serbia, the former Yugoslavia. And I also lived and worked in Belgrade. I actually worked at Ušće Tower back in 2008, 2009, when Merrill Lynch bought a stakeholder of MPC Properties. So I know the region very well, and I represent a number of clients that have invested into the region. So you can see from the panel members today, we've got a fantastic panel. We have Bojan Stanic, Assistant Director at the Serbian Chamber of Commerce. We have Alessandro Bragonzi, Head of EIB Regional Office for Western Balkans. We've got Marko Stojcic, the City Architect at Belgrade. And then we've got Mr. Adir, the CEO of Afi Europe in Serbia. So I think I'll start off with the introductions. And Marko, please, if you can begin by introducing yourself and telling a little bit more to the audience about what you do and what you, a little bit more background about how you do it and common themes in Serbia at the minute. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello to everyone. For start, I'm the city architect in Belgrade for the last 2 years. I was a member of the planning committee for 4 years before that. So I know almost everything that happens today in Belgrade, but for the last 2 years, I separated my work. First one is the planning, and we are doing our best to cover entire Belgrade with the plans of detailed regulation and plans of general regulation in order to have everything covered so that every parcel in the city could be constructed. Since we are today probably in the best situation in Belgrade existence, according to how many investors we have, how many square meters is constructed every year. Now we are in around some number of 1.5 square meters built every year for the last almost 4 years, last 3 years for sure. And the other main thing about my work is construction of the many public things, roads, parks, museums, many things that which doesn't exist. And for last 50 years, nobody had energy and will to construct them all in order to have Belgrade as one of the most interesting and most important European cities. So we are trying to do our best in order to catch up all the things that needed to be done in the past and must be done now in this moment. Of course, one of the biggest, not one of the biggest, surely the biggest project in Belgrade is the metro system, which will start construction by the end of this year. So many things are being done. So we are very proud of ourselves, of the people that support us, since we have the opportunity to completely change the picture of Belgrade and to do many interesting and great things, which are, how to say, maybe one of the most interesting things that are happening today in Europe. So we have a great team. The city of Belgrade has many good people who are able to do all of these things. So I don't know if I continue about the topics or to explain more about myself. Sorry.
If you can continue about some of the topics, because
okay,
for me, for example, I haven't been in Belgrade for the past year and a half because of the pandemic. So I'm looking forward to seeing what's new and what's in the pipeline in Belgrade. So if you could briefly talk about a few of the topics, that would be great.
Thank you. Many things. Of course, pandemic was a terrible thing. It still is, and it is a big issue for us in each of the projects. But we of course worked every day since the start of pandemic, and construction sites all around Belgrade didn't stop. 95% of them. And maybe on the start there was a problem since some people on the construction sites were not from Belgrade, and it was difficult for them to be on the site, since the all things that were around measures that our republic decided about. So our city projects, 95% of them were going smoothly. So I could say probably that with or without pandemic, it wouldn't be much different. Of course, it is an issue about economics and money. It is difficult for us to catch up all the investments on the same way, like that there is no pandemic, but we are doing our best to use all the money possible which are in the budget, in the city budget, and of course in the budget of Republic of Serbia. So I can say thank you to all the people in Belgrade, city of Belgrade, and all the ministries and the government of Republic of Serbia. All knew that this must go on, and that we cannot stop any minute. And the result of that is, as I said before, starting soon, that we will soon start the construction of metro system. Many important things: 2 bridges, 1 tunnel, many things. And of course, private investors saw that, and they saw the opportunity to go on and then continue working on many important investments. So in order to have this market satisfied with all that needed to be done. So we have many interesting projects. I will speak only briefly about one, which is really important for us. That is the project of Linear Park, which will completely change the city center of Belgrade, since it is the 4.5 kilometers park in length, and it will completely change one big portion of Belgrade city center. So of course we are continuing to expand pedestrian zones, to expand green traffic, and many things that we done in last 2 or 3 years with planning and other plans. For example, like the plan of sustainable mobility and the plans for the green, how to say, greenery of Belgrade. And we have clear picture of what is needed to be done in next 2 and 3 years. So we just expect that we will have, of course, the money for all of those projects. But in order to have money, our obligation is to help private investors to continue investing and constructing as they have, of course, the chance for last few years. So if we conclude about the impact of pandemic, it wasn't so big, but it showed us some changes in the market. For example, there is a huge demand for houses and huge demands for living outside of the city center. So according to city planning rules and everything, we are looking some new parts of Belgrade, but in the inner circle of Belgrade, sorry, not inner circle, inner borders of Belgrade, to have some places urbanized in order to have answer to all those people who would like to live in the houses. Maybe that was the biggest change in the housing and that part of the investments. So everything else looks that it is going all right, and we now see that at least 2.5 to 3 years there will be no bigger changes in investment cycle and the types of the constructions and investments that will be done. Of course, commercial buildings had some impact with this pandemic, and of course that many people are working now from home. But from my opinion, it is that will not be some lasting how to say operation. And I think that soon as pandemic is finished, that most of the people will be back in the office building. So I don't see many things changed. Of course, with the shopping malls and retail centers, they are now in very big problems, since most of the time the shopping malls are closed. So I hope that they will in next 3 or 4 months recover entirely from this, and I'm sure that this part of the investments will not be jeopardized by pandemic if we are period. So I don't know what other panelists think, especially Adir, since we are working a lot, since they are one of the most important investors here in Belgrade, and they are looking for the market and every possible way to be on the right track. So
thank you for that, Mr. Stojcic. I think it makes sense now if we go on to Mr. Adir, and maybe Mr. Adir, if you can do an introduction as well. Not that people don't know what you do, but it would be nice to have that background as well for people that don't know about what you do over in Belgrade. So thank you for that, Mr. Stojcic. And over to you, Mr. Adir.
All right, thank you, and hello everybody. My name is Adir Elal, and I'm the CEO of Afi Europe Serbia for the past couple of years. And as you may see, we are very active in the city of Belgrade mainly. Afi Europe is basically active in Serbia since 2002, and since then we completed successfully more than 300,000 square meters of mixed-use projects. We are mainly concentrated in the office segment of the market, but we did also some residential project and a bit of retail accommodated together with those projects. We started and we continue, of course, our flagship project in the name of Airport City Belgrade, located in New Belgrade, consists of more than 200,000 square meters of office buildings, which we hold and lease and maintain for the past almost 15 years. This first and only business park and the biggest business park in the region is considered to be a very successful story for us as a company, as a developer, and of course for the city of Belgrade. We continue in the city center with a project named Central Garden, which is a condominium of residential 400 apartments, together with some retail spaces on the ground floors and the one office building of 15,000 square meters of office space, which is almost fully leased. It was another good project of us, and we are very, very proud of this development in the city center. And relatively new, not so new already, but very major development of us currently is Skyline Project, which is, again, it's a mixed-use landmark project located in the, I would say, the gate, one of the gates to the city center, just above the highway by the entrance to Kneza Milosha Street. This mixed-use project consists of mainly 3 towers, laying on underground parking of 6 different levels. Total build-up area of this project is approximately 90,000 square meters, and it consists of a residential tower which was completed and almost fully sold, an office tower which is under construction, 32 stories of an office development. This is almost 40,000 square meters of above ground build-up area. And the third tower, which will start, I hope, very soon. And we are still assessing the usage of that tower. Currently, it's designed to be a residential tower. So this is our next development. And of course, Afi, as Afi Europe, is always seeking for new plot of lands and new development in the city. We have great cooperation. But before that, can I ask just to put the city, the video of the airport city, Jagoda, so all of us can understand the scope of our activity. Good, thank you. Did you hear also this video?
Yes, we saw that video. That was fantastic.
Okay, great, because I couldn't hear it. So this was Airport City, as I said, and it was our first development. We can see now shortly, really shortly, the Skyline Project, which is under development, as I said. Please, Jagoda. So as I said, Afi Europe Serbia is committed, of course, to Serbia. We see Serbian market and place as one of our, I would say, strategic place for investment. We are heavily invested here, and we will continue our activities in the country and in the region. We are active all over, almost all over East Europe and in other countries as well in Europe. And we are satisfied, of course, with the cooperation with the city authorities. My friend Marko is, of course, leading and one of the most important key persons in our activities, and his colleagues that are doing their best in a positive approach, and the results are seen not only with us, but also all over the city of Belgrade and the country of Serbia. I can say that in the past couple of years, you can see a change, and which is very positive and very important for the development of the country. We are relying, of course, on a very skillful local manpower, which is most of them are with us for many years, and we trust, and we are able to build with them the cooperation that, of course, is a key factor for the success of a developer in Serbia.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
That's very, very interesting, and I'll come back to you later on if that's okay.
Of course.
Know, the amount of projects that you've done in the region, and I know you're not a fortune teller, but I'll probably ask you about future trends and developments in Serbia within the real estate market, but I'll come back to you later for that.
Thank you.
Alessandro, are you okay now to give some information about the EIB and what you do in the region?
Thank you very much. Hope you can hear me well. Again, thank you, Petar, for giving me the floor and for the organizer for the opportunity to speak today at this conference. My name is Alessandro Bragonzi, and I've been working at the European Investment Bank for the last 11 years and previously for leading banks and consulting companies across Europe. I was appointed since January as the head of EIB regional representation for the Western Balkans here in Belgrade. And before this position, I was in charge for the bank's operation in Albania, North Macedonia, and Kosovo. So me too, I can say that I know pretty well the region on my side. So talking about my organization, the European Investment Bank is a publicly owned bank owned by the 27 member states, founded by the Treaty of Rome. It is being present in the Western Balkans for more than over 40 years now, where we have been supporting the development of vital connectivity infrastructure, and as well as the private sector, for which roughly 1/3 of our annual volume goes into projects involving small, medium-sized enterprise and mid-caps. Since 2009, so roughly the last 10 years, we have invested more than 8.6 billion, which makes us one of the largest and long-standing financiers in the region. Across these years, we have supported investment thanks to our loan that helped retain over 500,000 of jobs in the region. We have reconstructed hospitals, judicial courts, schools, research and development centers, as well as mostly building hundreds of kilometers of modern and safer roads. We have been partners of local governments and stood by the region in good times and bad times alike. In 2020, we have helped mobilizing over 1 billion investment for the region, preventing the economic fallout and accelerating the recovery of COVID-19. This was part of a package from the European Union called initiative called Team Europe, which was announced in May 2020 during the EU Western Balkan Summit in Zagreb. This is a bit an overview of the EIB. Let me know if you want me to speak further about what we do in infrastructure, or we leave it for later.
No, that's perfect, and I'll have some further questions about infrastructure later. So thank you, Alessandro. And last but not least, Bojan, an introduction from yourself. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. As you mentioned, my name is Bojan Stanic, and I am Assistant Director responsible for strategic analysis and data here in the Chamber of Commerce and Industry of Serbia, which is also known with the acronym PKS. So the PKS is the, let's say, general representative of the business community here in the country, since all registered companies are our members. And thanks to our network of business associations and regional chambers, we cover the whole economy in terms of economic structure and territory. Also, we represent and protect the interests of the business community in our let's say, daily communication with the government, which since the government is the creator of legislative framework and macroeconomic policy. Also, we did a lot of effort to promote internationalization of Serbia's economy. And we are one of the main, let's say, probably the main promoter of regional cooperation here in the region of Western Balkans through our mechanism known as a Chamber Investment Forum, which brings together all the chambers of commerce from the region of Western Balkans. So talking about my, let's say, professional skills, I am employed in the PKS since 2016. And before that, I used to work for the government in the public debt administration. And before that, I used to work in the retail sector. My, let's say, professional interests are within the fields of macroeconomics, foreign trade, growth and development, and economic risk on a global level. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think I forgot to mention before that, as well as having my hat on today as a partner of a real estate practice, a lawyer firm in London, I'm also deputy chair of the British Serbian Chamber of Commerce. And we work very closely with the Serbian Chamber of Commerce, and we hope to do so more and more as the pandemic we get control of the pandemic and we try to promote business between the UK and Serbia. But I'm going to go back now to infrastructure, and I think I'm going to go back to you, Alessandro. Modernization, it's been happening at a fast pace over in Serbia. So I wanted to ask you, modernization of infrastructure, how is that going to increase the economic resilience and competitiveness, not only of Serbia, but of the regional market? And just wondered if you could answer that question for us.
Thank you, Petar, again. Infrastructure is, as we say, the bread and butter of the European Investment Bank, is our cornerstone investment. We have been financed more than 5 billion euros only in these sectors, mostly in road infrastructure. Let me say that for more than, as I said, more than 40 years we are here. We have been the development arm of the European Union. It is important that to have a bank that promotes the principle of the EU, the rules of the EU, the valued objectives, and that contributes to the stable growth of countries that are beyond EU borders. This is because economies are increasingly interconnected, and events around the globe like the pandemic, but also forced displacement and climate change have a significant impact on the EU and Europe as well. In the late 90s, our financing to infrastructure was mostly focused in the region on the reconstruction and repairs of damaged roads, ports, railways, and bridges. More recently, our financing has expanded towards sectors such as healthcare and education, the purpose of which is to increase the living condition and the standards of the population, as well as foster skilled workforce, which will help the region to become more modern and self-sufficient. Let's say that the ongoing COVID-19 crisis and the consequences derived from the climate change have brought to surface several issues that we need to consider when we are designing the economy of our future. How are we going to accelerate the recovery from COVID-19? Increase the resilience for future crises, adopt new economic models that are inclusive, greener, and sustainable. What kind of infrastructure we need to support all these initiatives? Let's say that beyond the short-term immediate support to help most affected sectors by the crisis, the European Commission has drawn a new plan to support the strategy that foster long-term and resilient growth. This plan is the Economic and Investment Plan that was announced in late 2020 last year, which is a blueprint for greening and more prosperous growth in the region, supporting a better investment climate and new inclusive job opportunities. The main aspect of this is that it makes available 9 billion of grants for funding investment flagship in the area of transport, green and digital transition. It also includes the creation of the Western Balkans Guarantee Facility, which is expected to mobilize over 20 billion of investments, mostly in the private sector, which will boost development and competitiveness. These are 10 key flagship projects that, as I said, improve connectivity through better transport, energy, and digital networks, and decrease the environmental pollution that has been a critical issue in the region for decades. As mentioned, there are three main priorities of this. One is the sustainable transport. By sustainable and investing in sustainable transport infrastructure, the European Investment Bank and the EU as a whole is creating conditions for better regional connectivity, faster trade, economic development, and new job opportunities. Over our 40 years long presence in the Balkans, we have built hundreds of kilometers, include transit routes along the pan-European corridors that contributes to faster commuting, increased road safety, and lower frequency of accidents on the road. However, EIB is now scaling up towards more sustainable forward transports, include the revitalization of railway routes across the Western Balkan countries. Also, we are signing new investment into sustainable urban mobility, including modernization of the urban transport in the canton of Sarajevo, that will decrease traffic congestions and air pollution in one of the cities with the highest pollution in Europe. In Serbia, we will continue financing the improvement of the waterway navigation along the river of Sava and Danube. And all these initiatives are part of a gradual shift to more sustainable forms of transportation with lower gas emissions. The second angle of it, as we said, is the digitalization. The EIP, Economic Investment Plan, envisages green and digital transition, essential for sustainability of local economies. Digitalization is a process that generates conditions for more connected market and development of innovation. Play a crucial role in competitiveness of global economy as sophisticated high technology solution depend on digital capacities. The pandemic reshaped economic concepts and our daily routines. It requires more sustainable and connected business, public administration, and communication models. It has triggered an urgency for intensified digitalization, a key driver for economic growth, competitiveness, and efficiency of the public services. Reinforced digital infrastructure proved to be essential for innovation and technological transition. As you say, digitalization has already caused a shift towards high-skilled occupation. Job growth in recent years has been driven by higher skilled position, whereas in the near future, the accelerated loss of low and medium skilled jobs through automation will create a massive need for reskilling. As one of the leaders in supporting this digital transformation, the EIB has started with its first digital connectivity projects in the Western Balkans. In 2020, we have financed 65 million in Serbia for digitalization of over 1,500 schools, enabling introduction of broadband network, IT equipment, online learning platforms, as well as digital trainings for 50,000 teachers. This project will enhance capacities of teachers to conduct online lessons more efficiently, even during emergencies, while pupils across the countries will be able to access digital education. Thanks to also our subsidiary, the European Investment Fund, we have provided 70 million worth guarantee for encouraging companies to increase their digital capacities. And then last items for us in terms of pillars, I will say the green transition. As you know, Western Balkans has been long struggling with the impact of climate changes, which has resulted, amongst other, in massive rainfalls and floods that hit the whole region. During all these emergencies, the EIB stood by the region to provide immediate financial relief and support for a project that support the prevention. When it comes to green transition, as the EU Climate Bank, we will not only support a sustainable and more efficient energy mix with lower CO2 emissions, but also enhance our investment into building local and regional wastewater treatment facilities. We are already financing construction of sewer system in municipality of Palilula in Belgrade, as well as in other major cities across the Western Balkans.
No, thank you for that, Alessandro. That was a very detailed and interesting view, not only on Serbia and Belgrade, but on the region. So I want to go back to Bojan, I think, and specifically ask you about domestic companies and your view on them, small, medium-sized, reconstruction and production of material and equipment, and in terms of access to state infrastructure projects from my local Serbian point of view.
Well, thank you, Peter. So as you know, the construction sector is one of the, let's say, leading economic sector and economic driver. Concluding with 2019, the growth rate was double digit. We all know what happened in 2020, but we believe that economic expansion will continue this year and in the years to come. Talking about the new investment cycle implemented by the government, which is also the, let's say, economic driver in the next midterm period. We, as a representative of the business community, we suggest that local companies should be more involved in the infrastructural project run by the government. We mean on the construction companies as well as the companies that producing construction material and equipment. That, let's say, access to the government projects need, let's say, to provide more, let's say, more finance to buy equipment and to, let's say, provide training for their staff, because modern construction solution need that, let's say, finance, and that should be addressed by some guarantee schemes in cooperation between government and commercial banks here in Serbia. What is also important, because it will increase the revenues for the local companies, as well as it will help the companies to collect more references for the other tenders that they should apply in Serbia and abroad. That should be also applied for the infrastructure projects run by private companies. And what is also important for Serbia is that infrastructure in, let's say, inner parts of the country and in the border area are almost devastated. And it's also linked with the bad, let's say, demography situation. And it's a chance for cross-border cooperation with the regional government here in the country. And also, what is quite important for us, that talking about our EU integration process, which is a bit delayed in the recent years, we need more understanding from our international partners for our companies to make them, let's say, stronger for the future competition on the highly developed EU market once when we become the member of EU. So that's the main thing that we want to highlight, that we need our companies, private companies, especially those that are selected in the group of micro, small and medium enterprises, to be more involved in these projects that are, let's say, the key economic drivers of our GDP.
No, very interesting. I'm going to turn to property now and real estate. Adir, you made reference to some of the projects that you've done, Central Garden, Skyline, Airport City. They're all huge projects. And I think everybody on the panel and members today know that you're one of the biggest investors in real estate in Serbia. But now I'm going to ask you to look at your crystal ball and predict the future for us and say what your opinion is, assessment of the future of the real estate market in Serbia, and what kind of developments and trends that you see.
Okay, so all of us agree that the infrastructure is a key driver for further development of the real estate sector. And goes without saying that this must be accompanied by a stable economy and a stable government, which will basically lead to the trust of the local and the foreign investors and companies, which will boost the real estate market further. So if you have all these packaged together, infrastructure, stability, and the growth perception of the market, you can develop successful projects, which happened. Of course, it happens, of course, in hips and heights, but it happened in the past couple of, let's say, in the last 15 years in Serbia, in I would say 2.5 circles, as the nature of the real estate is. Together with that, the government and the authorities will need to simplify further all the process of permitting and allowing, especially big real estate developers, to develop their activities or their ideas and visions in order to boost the economy. Because at the end of the day, the foreign investors or the big local investors, developers, are the ones that are basically leading and creating and boosting the economy the most. And they need to have a green path in order to be able to produce and to do those projects that you mentioned that we are doing here, which, as you know, it's not an easy job to do, but still with the good support and proper stability and infrastructure that I mentioned, it can be done. We foreseen that the office market in Serbia will continue to grow. with all the adjustments and the amendments that it will require due to pandemic, and maybe new companies' policies regarding their way of activity, type of activity, number of people, areas, etc. But still, the requirement, the demand will be there, and therefore we will continue to invest in the office segment in Serbia. And this is one of the key drivers of our company here. A company that, again, with a bit of residential, of course, some retail that supports this type of activity.
In how they make real estate investment, diversification of portfolios. So you've got a good spread. You know, the office market, like from the EBRD as well, it's going to continue, it's going to rebound, as is tourism, it's going to rebound. So a diverse portfolio is essential, of course. Bojan, I'm going to go back to you. And I want to know about the support to the housing sector that you think's needed to increase credit activity. Have you got any thoughts on that?
Well, thank you, Peter. So, as you probably know, what international financial institutions warned us that the, let's say, key issue for the sustainable growth of the Republic of Serbia in the long term is demographic problems. So, I mean, both in natural sense and also mechanical, since we have a high rate of immigration and, let's say, negative birth rate here in Serbia, and also what is also the feature of the whole region. And we believe that a part of a solution for the solution for that problem will be an easier access for the people when buying to credits, to loans, when buying the first apartment. So the Chamber of Commerce and Industry of Serbia, together with the city of Belgrade, suggested a set of measures that will help the people in their access to the credits. So far, the National Bank of Serbia suggested that the participation rate when buying the first apartment would be have to be lower from 20% to 10%. This is just a suggestion. There's not obligation for the banks. I think several banks accepted that suggestion, but we also suggested that the area of the apartment on which VAT return should be applied have to be larger from today's, I think, 40 or 50 square meters to 60. And also our third suggestion was that when buying the apartment in the process of construction, today's rule is that the apartment has to be finished in 80% finished, and we suggested that rate to be that share to be lower to 60%. What is also important for us, I will just mention the issue in Russia, because, for example, in that country, the problem, negative demographic trend emerged again since 2015, I think, and their experts concluded that concentrating, let's say, population policy on the women in the period of pregnancy and when they are raising child in the first year will not solve the problem, because the parents need the broader, let's say, perspective for their decision to stay here in the country. And also in that sense, they have to see perspective for their children that need parental support for at least 18 years. In that sense, we believe that it will help let's say, to preserve our declining population, and that easier access to the loans for buying apartments will be quite supportive for our, let's say, young married couples.
No, very interesting. I'm conscious of the time, and we've got to finish by 11 a.m. And we've actually got a couple of questions, and one that's come in for you, Bojan, in particular to what you've just mentioned. And you mentioned this kind of suggestions that you made, like the decrease to 60% on developed property. What was the reaction? Did you get any feedback on that, or is that still
Well, because it has to be agreed in cooperation between government and commercial banks. We still have no any, let's say, positive feedback, but they told us that this suggestion is under consideration.
Okay. And then I've got another question here, and it's for Adir, and it's someone's asking if you were an investor and you were coming to Serbia, someone from the UK, and they were deciding which sector of real estate to invest into, what would you advise? And maybe it goes back to the point that I said before, you know, keeping a diverse portfolio. But what do you see as what's the most vibrant sector at the minute? Is it residential, or is it office, or is it?
I would say, yeah. So I would say that residential is still, yes, and I think will stay for some time, still very attractive. Of course, you need to choose the location, like we say always in real estate, 3 times location. But yes, real estate, residential, yes. Logistic is a very interesting sector that needs to be examined, still underdeveloped, and a lot to be done in that segment. And the offices, of course, as a driver, but then I will not advise it to do because it will become my competition. So I would advise him not to come.
Of course. Yeah, now, you know, going back to the keynote speech made by EBRD, logistics and digital development, those things that are booming at the minute, and you can understand why. So I think now we just have 1 more minute left. Let me just double check that there are no further questions. No, there aren't. So I just want to take this opportunity to thank all the panelists. I think everyone will agree that it was a fantastic panel, and we've done very well on producing this panel online. So thanks to the organizers again. And thank you on behalf of JMW Solicitors and on behalf of the British Serbian Chamber of Commerce, Jagoda, for putting all this together, and the Jadranka in the background working as well. So many thanks to you all, and I'll pass over now back to Jagoda, I believe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, just unmute myself. Thank you, Peter. Thank you all panelists. It was a great panel. I really enjoyed it. Before we continue with the program, first I would like to apologize. We had some technical issues during the first video spot commercial break. Now we solve it and it won't happen again during the conference. And now, before I announce the next keynote speaker, once again, I would like deeply to thank to the British Serbian Chamber of Commerce for a fabulous cooperation that I had on this project. Many thanks to Dr. David Landsman, to Richard, and to Jadranka for all your help and all really, really fantastic assistance during preparation of this conference. Now, I would like to introduce the new keynote speaker. It is Mr. Louis Taylor, the Chief Executive from UK Export Finance. Stay with us.